If I tell you to use one word to describe yourself, what would it be? Write that word down on the paper and don't think too much. Did you write it down? If I tell you to use one word to identify yourself, what would it be? Write that identity down as well. And finally, which word would you like other people to use when describing you? Write that down and fold the paper. Now, exchange the paper with the person sitting next to you. And don't look what's written inside. All did it? Okay. So now, who used the same word 3 times? Raise your hands. Okay. Did anyone write the same word 3 times for personality, identity, and what other people would like to think about you? Only one person. Who used personality and identity words as the same? So the first 2 words. 1, 2. Okay. And who wrote ethnicity, religion, race, career, origin as their identity word, as the second one? Raise your hands. Don't be ashamed. Okay, 1? Okay. So now try thinking for yourself. When was the first time you heard word identity and in what context? From our early age, we are taught to perceive identity as a form of expressing ourselves to be categorized in a specific social group. Politics, media, family, they all teach us that identity is just deeply embedded self-belonging sense to a certain social group that shares specific identity marks, such as symbols or territory or language or some cultural values. But this creates the feeling that we have a single identity. And having a single identity is really dangerous because we start defining differences, very rigid and often exaggerated differences among different groups of people, especially the ones that we don't belong to. On the other hand, if we start thinking that the first identity that should be important to us is that we are human beings, we can't make any more categories. And then we can start finding and defining our own personal identities, such as emotions, such as expectations or experiences that we had, or goals, or even the favorite color. And then when we don't have any categories, we can connect with everyone. We are all only a unique mosaic of all the possible identities that we share with other people. So why do we prioritize certain identities? Why do we use identity as an excuse to have a conflict? If we start defining differences among people, that leads to stereotyping. Stereotyping leads to lack of communication. Lack of communication leads to separation. Separation leads to hate speech. Hate speech leads to conflict, and that leads to violence. But if we start talking about similarities, that leads to unity. That leads to better communication. That leads to communication which is very dynamic with all the possible people. That leads to connection, to acceptance, to inclusiveness, and finally to peace. So I want you now to open the paper that you have been given and read the words. Can you find any identical words or the words with the similar feelings, with the similar meanings that the other person wrote? Okay, so if you find any similar word or that has a similar meaning, shake hands with that person, hug, whatever you feel comfortable with, quickly. Nice. And for you who don't find any similar words, rip the paper. Just rip the paper quickly. Did you all finish the task? Rip the paper. Let's go. Now try concentrating on what is happening here. Think about what you just did. You connected with the person that is similar with you, but you crushed the identity of a person that is different from you. And this is leading to conflict. This is exactly the same thing that happened in Balkans region in 1990s, where people who share the same identities, who share a very big piece of history, who have the same language, who have the same culture, they went into the war because they prioritized different identities, religion and origin. Because of that war between Bosnians, Serbs, and Croats that was 5 years long, more than hundreds of thousands of people were killed, millions displaced, and millions more traumatized, including us who were born after the war. Crushing someone's identities. So how to move on from here? Not long time ago, I've noticed that our societies are doing the exact same thing that led to the war before. They are prioritizing certain social identities. They are teaching false history. They are promoting differences. They are separating people. They are separating children in schools based on ethnicities. And of course, that keeps the conflict stealthy, but very viable. And is as terrifying as it sounds. So I was asking myself, what can I do to make a sustainable peace in this kind of society that is denying a problem? And the one big problem that we are always having when we try to think about the sustainable peace is that we think that the peacemaking process is always based on the conflict resolution. That's not the only component. Reconciliation between the conflicted group is not the other only component, because we can't forget about all the people who are affected by this. And one common mistake that we are making, again, in this peace-building process, is that we take society as an object. We resolve the conflict, and we leave the apparent image of stable situation that is like a bubble, and it bursts again. Because in the center of any peace-building process is a single human being, an individual. And therefore, conflict resolution cannot be the only component, because there are too many things involved in here. So generally, sustainable peace would be divided in having the outer peace, as I said, resolving the conflict, moving forward, reconciliation. But then if you take a human being in center, then you have to work on the inner conflicts, on all the traumas that people are going through, all the conflicted identities that they are having, all the fear to express who they are or to deny that they are something that they are born into. Because in Balkans, especially in Bosnia, it's still more important in which ethnicity I'm born into than what I become by working or by my decisions. So we can't focus on nature preservation or innovation in a country if the people are still traumatized, if they don't know who they are, if they don't know how to express that. And that was a very big issue, because the conflicts, especially in young people, they are still piling up because of all of these things. And that will lead to a more severe problem than just having a lethargy or lost hope or brain drain because our people are leaving the country. But I think that's already severe enough, if you're asking me. We don't need conflict for that. So I was thinking if there's anything that I can do about this. And I had no idea. I literally had no idea. But luckily, 2 years ago, one of our Bosnian refugees who lives in Switzerland, and she's a founder of nonprofit organization Sandchild, she recognized the same problem, and she brought one peace trainer from South Africa just to organize one single day short workshop. She gathered different young people from Bosnia and Herzegovina, only like 20 of us, and she said, like, let's focus on the inner conflicts. Let's learn how much the inner peace is important to you. So the whole goal of the workshop was to learn how to recognize the inner conflicts that we all have at all times, because that's a natural thing. To recognize that we have them, to recognize how do they affect us? Can we connect with the other people? Are we afraid? Do we maybe trust too much? That could happen. Any kinds of conflicts. And of course, to learn how to resolve them. But then I realized it's a lifelong learning process. You can't learn that in one day. And you can't be the only one who is changed and accepts this kind of technique. And behind the curtains, what was the most important? This peace trainer, he created a safe space. He created a place where we can all trust each other and we can all be open and vulnerable. And that's so beautiful, because when you are open, you're not only letting the negative things go, but also the good things hit your heart. And this is how you build peace, with trusting, with communication, with dealing with yourself as well. And it was such a beautiful and life-changing experience for all of us. It really connected all of us, that we, after being completely separated and distrustful, we became friends. So we wanted to do something. Say like, I really want so many people to feel this, that with the positivity and the openness, we can change the world. And of course, I joined the organizing team in Sunchild, and the first thing we did, we took it out in the society. If we want to make a change, we have to start in the society. So what we did is we created portrait streets exhibition from our citizens in Sarajevo. So the first idea of the project was to show how many differences we have, how all different and beautiful we are. But then that would be a completely wrong approach, because as I told you at the beginning, differences create separation. So we took a completely different approach and we showed what unites us on a basic human level. And that is, we all have emotions. And in Bosnia, we all have a goal to be positive and to have a nice atmosphere and to bring the hope back. So we created that. We were pointing out what are the emotions that connect us all, how united we are, and that brought such a beautiful atmosphere in the city, and we became so supported. So we were thinking again, what else can we do? And from one-day workshop, we made 10 years Balkan Harmony project plan, that from that workshop that we had, we created a 5 days long workshops where youth from Balkan region, from the whole Balkan region, and the social workers will be trained by professional peace mediators to become trainers themselves. So they will become peace trainers, and then they will have their own groups of peoples that they will train, and then this is how they will change the mindset of the community, to accept that they have to deal with their inner conflicts, because whatever we feel, we take out into our environment. So they will do their own, after they become trainers, they will be supported to their own projects, to do their own camps, and what is most importantly, the project will result in educational modules that any society, not only post-war societies or conflicted societies, any kind of society can use, because this is something that we are all facing, right? So after this, we were thinking that having this kind of camps only in Bosnia wouldn't be such a good idea, because going back to the story on identities, if you are focusing on working with only one social group that shares the same identities and experiences and fears, that wouldn't make sense, because you are not making a big impact. The differences still exist. So what we want to do is that people from the whole Balkan region, they find their own similarities that unite all of them, and that will result in breaking the differences. So I can already tell you that the first peace camp will be done in Sarajevo in 2020, and the following one will be in Belgrade in Serbia. And with this, so having this in mind, I just don't want to close this speech telling you that the true change comes only from within. That would be completely untrue. You have to have willingness, the real power in you, and the real strong belief that you can make a change. But you also have to have devoted individuals who will not give up when it gets hard, who will, besides having a goal to make a change, also have a vision to inspire others. Because only when we are united in the same goals and emotions and expectations, that's how we can make the true change and break down the differences. Thank you.